Okay, here we're in Chapter 3, The Fundamentals of Algebra. This is Section 3.3 on simplifying algebraic expressions. So we're going to revisit many of the properties we've seen previously in this section, such as the commutative property multiplication. So if a and b are integers, then a times b is the same thing as b times a. Or we can just drop the multiplication and ab is equal to ba. Now, we can also do the associative property multiplication. So if a, b, and c are integers, then we can take a times b first and then multiply by c. Or we can take b times c first and then multiply by a. And if we drop the symbols, then it's just a, b, then times c, or bc times a. Now, in simplifying algebraic expressions, we can do two ways. We can first regroup to simplify with the associative property. So in this case, we have a -5 times a 7y. And we regroup by taking and looking at just the numbers. It's -5 times 7, and so we put those together and then times y. Well, -5 times 7 is -35. Then we have times y, and so that gives us a -35y. Or we can do it in one step and speed it up a little bit, just doing one thing. We can say, okay, well, we know it's going to be a -8 times 6. And what is 8 times 6? Well, that's 48. So it's going to be a -48. And then there's a z on the end. And basically, we're just kind of doing it all in one step. Same thing as we did here, we saw as -5 times 7. So we knew we were putting those together. And then we multiplied those and got that. And then we multiplied by that y and got the -35y. Well, here, we're just taking -8 times 6, -48 times z, and put a z on the end, and we're done. So let's do a, a couple practice ones. So here we have a -8t times -5. Well, the first way says we're going to take a -8 and then times, let's go ahead and put that in parentheses, a -5, and then times a t. Well, -8 times -5, that's 40 times t, and so that's 40t. Okay, similar here. We have a -4 times a -6. So we have a -4 times a -6, and then times a b and an a. Okay, so we need another times there. Excuse me. So -4 times -6, that's going to be positive because, again, negative times negative is positive, just like it was here. Negative times negative is positive. 4 times 6 is 24, and then times a, and then times b. Okay, so we can't do anything with those. We can't simplify, so it's just a and then b. Okay, now what about this one? -7 times 6 times x times y here. So we can take and multiply those two, and we get a -42. And then we take an x times y and we get xy, and then we multiply that by the -42, and we just get -42xy in one step. We don't have to do the kind of the 3 steps to get to the final part there. And now this one makes it even nicer because now we can take 3 times -2, that's a -6, and then -6 times 7, and well, we get a -42 again, -42, and now we just have x times y times z. So x, y, z. And then that would be our answer. And again, one step, all we have to think about it is, we're doing it kind of like we're doing here. We're just taking it 3 times -2 is -6, times 7 is -42, and then we can write that. Then x times y times z, and we just write that. Now, the distributive property, if a, b, and c are integers, then, we can take a times b plus c. And remember, we rainbowed that before. And then we got ab and then plus ac. And if we have a subtraction, it's just ab minus ac. And again, just rainbowing it through all of them. And so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do by order operations first, and then we're going to do it by distribution. So first, order of operations. Well, order of operations says we're going to do 4 plus 5. Well, 4 plus 5 says that's 9. Then we have 3 times 9. That's 27. So that's the first way, the order of operations. Now, if we do it by distribution, like up here, then we have to do this. And so let's go to the right for that one. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 times 5 is 15. 12 plus 15, well, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 5 is 7, and we get the same answer, which we better. Okay. And I guess I wrote it over here to do it over here, but it works over there too. So again, we're doing that, and then we just did that way instead. So I did it all over there and thinking that was another problem, didn't pay attention to there. All right. So now with variables present, we have to use strictly the distributive property because, here we have 3x plus 2. Well, that's not like 4 plus 5 where we can add 4 and 5 together and get 9. Here we can't add 3x plus 2 together because those are not like terms. And so what we have to do is strictly use the distributive. So we're going to take this times this, then that times that, and we're going to add them together. Well, here, this comes into play when we can say, okay, well, we can take 8 times 3 and put that down, and then times x, and then plus, then 8 times 2 and write that down. Or we can say, well, what is 8 times 3? Well, that's 24 times our x plus 8 times 2, well, that's 16. And so we've distributed and we sped up the process, which we kind of showed here. You just multiply in one step. 8 times 6 is 48, and it's a negative, and then times z. And that's what we're doing when we're doing this distribution. We're doing the boom, all in one step. Now, it says to do it the first way too, which is to say 8 times 3, and then times x plus 8 times 2, and then 3 times 8 is 24 times x plus 16. And then we can just say 24x plus 16. So we'll go down the first way and right the second way. All right, so let's go ahead and show our distribution again, because either way, we have to think about how it's working. So here it'd be a negative 3 times 4 times x. And then we have a negative 3 times a negative 15. Okay, well, negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12 times x. And here we have a negative times a negative, so it's positive, so it's plus 45. And if you need to, 15 times 3, 3 times 5 is 15, carry 1, 3 plus 1 is 4. And then we can say, well, that's just a negative 12x plus 45, dropping that multiplication there, okay? Or we can say, well, a negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12x. Negative 3 times a negative 15 is going to be a positive 45. And so we get that, and again, they match, okay? So let's do the bottom one here. We're going to distribute here and then here. So let's do the right way first. So 7 times 4. Well, 7 times 4 is 28, and then times x. And then 7 times a negative 8, well, that's a negative 56. So again, one step, we have it. Or we could take 7 times 4, then times x, and then minus 7 times 8. Well, 7 times 4 is 28 times x, minus, that's 56. And this gives us 28x minus 56. Okay. Now one last one. We'll multiply again here, and we'll rainbow and come over here as well. So here, let's go down first maybe. So we're going to have a negative 8 times a 7 times x times y. And then we're going to have plus a negative 8 times 2 times x times z. Okay, so here a negative times a positive is negative. 8 times 7 is 56 times x times y. And then we have negative 8 times 2, so that's going to be a negative 16 times x times z. And so it's a negative 56xy minus 16xz. Now, does that make sense up here? Well, 8 times 7 is 56. It's negative, so negative 56. And then we just have xy, because we have x and y. And now we have negative 8 times 2, so that's a negative 16. And we have x times z, and that's what we get. And guess what? It matches here and here once again. Okay, I'll pause here and I'll come back with more.